that was the only response that I found myself disagreeing with. I mean, Russia is an economy, it's an sclerotic economy. Its GDP per capita is weak. It's becoming ever more dependent on China.
Now, here's the question. Have we entered a new political age? A new poll by the think tank More in Common suggests that we have changed our views on many things. Britons feel that the world in 2025 is, and I quote, chaotic, dangerous, and they are losing confidence in the UK's international influence. Matthew Syed, contributor to The Times and The Sunday Times, is mulling over what these changes mean for the country, for our sense of identity and our place in the world in his brilliant column today. And I'm delighted to say that Matthew joins us now. Matthew, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very good. I really look. I always enjoy your columns, Matthew, but I think today it was a special one because, you know, we can talk about what we think the population's feeling and thinking, but when you get these polls, it really comes home how the country feels.
It was an interesting poll, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and very broad. And I mean, a few things that struck me about it was often I think the public is dismissed the ordinary punter, people who don't know much about politics. And you often hear these stories that you show a photo of Rachel Reeves to 10 people and only one recognise who it is. But I think that's rather unfair. My sense reading this poll is that the public is very well aware of the broader trends affecting both the UK and Europe and the wider world. The trends are geopolitical, technological, strategic, and they read what is happening and they are forming opinions accordingly. And so it seemed to me to portray something that sociologists often talk about, which is a wisdom of the crowd. And I found myself nodding along with with the views of the majority of the British people.
Were you surprised by any of the results of the polls? I think some people might have been taken aback with the attitudes towards what we're seeing happening in Gaza. Were you surprised by what you saw there?
No, not at all surprised. It's an increase in sympathy for Palestine, the Palestinians, and a reduction in solidarity with Israel. But that isn't just the British people. That's reflected in polling across the whole of the Western world. And not just the Western world, the global South and the Middle East. And I'm instinctively very pro-Israel. I was there in February, met a number of former prime ministers, and feel passionately that I'd like that country to do well in the future. But there is no doubt in my mind that the reputation of Israel has been shattered into a million pieces. And that in particular, younger people are horrified about what is happening in Gaza. And the next generation of Western leaders are going to grow up where the most salient image in their mind is not the Holocaust, as it was for the previous generation, but starving Palestinian children, Gazan children. And I say that with great reluctance. I think Hamas provoked the war. They goaded Israel into what I believe is an overreaction, the heinousness of the crimes they committed. And it has really obfuscated what Iran most feared, which was an accommodation between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I think this is going to increase jihadism. There's very good evidence already to support that. So I fear that the public is reflecting in this country what is being felt in many parts of the world.
Do you think Israel is going to become weaker for it, in the sense that it will have stirred up more incentive, anti-Israeli incentive in the region, that even if they're able to eradicate Hamas, which seems to be the plan with all the suggestions coming out of Israel, in the long term, Israel's security has been compromised?
The plan is flawed, I think, for very straightforward reasons. Israel keeps saying that the objective is to destroy Hamas and the religious fundamentalists that surround Israel. But senior Israeli officials have told me that these terrorist networks are replacing killed Hamas fighters at a rate of 5 to 1. This is corroborated by a whole range of academic research that shows that the networks are indeed recruiting. They're on a recruitment drive. They're sending out social media posts. And what's better to radicalize people than those seeing family members killed and their limbs strewn across destroyed buildings. This is also going to increase jihadism around the Western world, of course, too, and we're seeing that as a phenomenon. So I think that the strategy, it's very difficult to destroy an ideology or a sort of a fanatical religious virus of that kind. And that may sound to people that I'm blaming Israel for Islamic fundamentalism. That is not what I'm doing. I'm saying we need to understand the world as it is. And I believe that what would have been in Israel's interest is a proportionate response, taken out a few thousand people, not 50, 60, 70,000, so that the world remained on Israel's side, and then go for the accord with Saudi Arabia. That would have isolated Tehran. It would have undermined the funding for jihadism. And let's not forget that jihadism globally has been on the decline for a decade. I fear that that's about to go into reverse.
Matthew, another one of the standout results, I thought, of the polling conducted by More in Common was this idea that we have of the power that the UK is able to use, whether they were more or less powerful. And such a huge drop, such an increase, I should say, in people thinking that we are less powerful. Almost just under 40% of the people asked thought that the UK was less powerful, and whereas they think that the UAE, China, the US, India, and Russia, surprisingly, have become more powerful. How did you look at those results?
Well, it's correct. The Britain is less powerful. The public also spotted that Europe is becoming less powerful, and that China is rising, India is rising, the UAE is doing very well, and America is still powerful. I mean, it still just does command a quarter of global GDP, so it's holding its own. It's quite equivocal, I think, about Trump. I mean, I definitely get the feeling that the public supports Trump, the British public, and understands why he's seeking to control the southern border. They understand that completely. I also think you can see in this poll the sense that Trump is right to pressure Europe to spend more on defense. They support the increase to 5% in defense spending, broadly speaking. But the problem is Europe is in decline. And I think so. But the next question, of course, is how you avert the decline of Europe, how you avert the decline of the UK. And my sense is the British public is not yet in a place to accept the sacrifice that is going to be required from almost every section of society to turn it around. Yeah.
Were you surprised by the fact that quite a lot of people tend to think that Russia has increased its power? I mean, Russia's fighting a war, their economy has been struggling, and yet the perception is that Russia is quite powerful.
Well, that was the only response that I found myself disagreeing with. I mean, Russia is an economy, it's a sclerotic economy. Its GDP per capita is weak. It's becoming ever more dependent on China. China is, of course, the purchaser of many of its resources, and Russia would struggle desperately if China didn't send it dual-use components for its drones and its military operation. So I think of Russia as actually in quite a vulnerable position at the moment. But the public, I think, maybe is thinking, but it is very strong militarily. And in a sense, it is. It has many nuclear warheads that could destroy the world 2 or 3 times over. So I think the public is right to say that we need to be wary of Russia, and I think we need to stand up to Russia so that it doesn't bully more countries as it is doing in a horrific way to Ukraine.
Matthew, it's a brilliant piece. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us about it here on Times Radio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Syed there.